sign here says, "Another world. You are entering a restored 19th century environment. Though they are uncommon today, hazardous conditions such as uneven and slippery boardwalks were a part of the everyday scene in Lincoln, Springfield. Please be careful." Picture of Lincoln's home, and you can see the people that are here this morning. It's 11:33, September the 16th. This is Abraham Lincoln's home here in Springfield, Illinois.
I mean, not Boeing Steel, but a Boeing building.
Part of the grounds. Now here's another old home. I guess it's part of the, and directly behind me is the visitor center. We haven't been in it, so we don't know what's there. Very beautiful, nice, cool, late summer, early fall. We're in Lincoln's visitor center now, and here is the farewell address spoken to the people of Springfield by Abraham Lincoln on February the 11th, 1961, before he left for Washington, D.C. It says, "My friends, no one not in my situation can appreciate my feelings of sadness at this parting. To this place and the kindness of these people I owe everything. Here I have lived a quarter of a century. I have passed from young to an old man. Here my children have been born, and one is buried. I now leave, not knowing when or whether ever I may return, with the task before me greater than that which rests upon Washington. Without the assistance of that divine being, whoever attended him, I cannot succeed. With that assistance, I cannot fail. Trusting in him who can go with me and remain with you, be everywhere for good, let us confidently hope that all will yet be well. To his care commending you, as I hope in your prayers you will commend me, I bid you an affectionate farewell." These are just some cardboard cutouts here. This shows one of the downtown area. Seem to be getting a little reflection from some lights here. This is one of just of the home. These are just cardboard cutouts. Here's a crowd of people, I guess, that it used to be the Holiday Inn. Now it's the Hilton. They tell me they've got a favorite nickname for this, but Betty said don't put it on tape. I see two little orphan girls over there. They seem to be familiar. That one that's got her fingers in her ears. Korrie Lou. Korrie, Abraham Lincoln's going to come down there and paddle you. little speck up here at the top of my lens I'll have to clean off. One of the tour guides down here dressed up in the period costume of Abraham Lincoln. I don't know whether you can get it or not. She is in the shade there. Okay. Alright, we've got to go over and get in line now for the, of course they've taken and fenced a lot of this off now. And they will take you back to the garden. I see there's a tour here every 15 minutes. And we're on the 12 o'clock high noon tour. This is 8th Street and Edwards, which is a block west of the Lincoln home. But the street has, of course, been redone. But many of these old houses were here at Lincoln's time. And we'll read some of the signs and go on and take the tour. But these are some of the homes here in Lincoln's Square, Lincoln, Springfield. It says available at the visitor center, this map, just here on a pedestal, Lincoln's home. This barn here, and we'll read about it in just a second as I walk up through here. There's a sign explaining it. Alright, and the sign here reads Solomon Allen Barn. Allen the gunsmith owned and lived in a house on this property during the 1850s and 60s. His barn is the only outbuilding from the Lincoln period that still exists in the historic site. Many of Lincoln's neighbors kept livestock in barns such as this. And you can see the old barn there in the background. It belonged to a Solomon Allen. Reads Henson Robertson House. Huh? Okay. During the 1860s, this was a residence of Henderson Robinson, a partner in a Springfield business concern that sold stoves, furnaces, and tinware. Robinson's company had a contract to manufacture tin cups and plates for soldiers during the Civil War. In 1860, this house was rented to a Mrs. Cook, a widow, who let rooms to help provide support for herself and her children. In 1855, a Springfield newspaper carried an advertisement for Mrs. Cook's photographic studio with its splendid camera, beautiful stock, and best help in the city. There's no house. That's the Robinson house being restored. And this is the front of the Cook house in the Lincoln Historic. All right, this sign reads Charles Arnold House. This was the Arnold residence from 1850 to 1870, a political ally of Abraham Lincoln. Arnold was twice elected county sheriff on the Whig ticket during the years he was Lincoln's neighbor. And I don't know whether that's the house.
Oh.
The wood stove. What amazes you is how many fireplaces there are in these rooms.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as we all get in place, he'll come through that door.
Sorry, could I slip right up here?
Sure.
On behalf of the National Park Service, I would like to welcome you to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln. I'll be your tour guide for the next few minutes, and if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. They lived here for 17 years of their life. This is the only home that they ever owned. The house that they lived in just before he became President of the United States, so it's a very historic home. 3 of their 4 sons were born here, 1 of them died here, and for the most part, this is the home in which they raised their family. To your left is the formal parlor. It's the nicest room in the house. Mrs. Lincoln would have always asked her special guest to come in the front door. She would have led them into this room to make a good first impression. She saved her finest, most elegant furniture for that room. Remember, they had 4 boys, and you can well imagine the boys were never allowed to play in this part of the house. In fact, that's what these folding doors, these are original Lincoln doors here. They would have been closed and locked shut most of the time. Over here to your right is his library, or a study where he spent a good deal of time reading and writing. Remember now, he was an educated man, but self-educated, reading books all the time. And it was right here between the 2 rooms that Abraham Lincoln made his in May of 1860 when he stood up right here and accepted the nomination to run for President of the United States. We have about 50 items in the home that actually belong to Lincoln. Everything else that you see is a piece of period furniture. For the most part, the furniture in these two rooms were his. Ask me a question.
Is that genuine leather?
That's genuine horsehair. Let's walk all the way through the dining room and we'll talk about the sitting room.
This is the dining room? Yeah.
Well, I think that's Amy you're looking for.
There's his hat.
Probably every room, right?
Well, they called it a sitting room back then because that's what they did here. After the family ate dinner in the dining room, the whole family would come into this room and sit down and talk. Abraham Lincoln wrestled on the floor with the boys. The boys had their birthday parties here. This is where Mrs. Lincoln had her sewing parties. One time the boys asked their mother if they could invite some friends over. She said, sure, go ahead. They invited 55 boys into this one room.
No. I don't believe that.
Get out. You're out here.
Take your ticket and leave.
Probably brighter colors than most new since our last restoration, but we think it's very close to what they had back then. Carpet's kind of interesting. It's put together in pieces. Once a year, Mrs. Lincoln and the hired girl, in order to clean the carpet, had to unstitch the pieces of the carpet, beat it clean, bring it back in, sew it all together. Yeah. Wall-to-wall carpet throughout the house.
That blind? Let's go see where the little boys used to sleep. Come on. Excuse me.
See, there's a night hut. They didn't have bathrooms like you and I did.
The room at the top of the stairs was the guest room. Here we have his bedroom. Now, it was common in those days for husband and wife to have separate rooms. So we've got his room here, her room right next to him. This is, if you excuse this more, please. This is the one room in the house that we had the original wallpaper to copy from. So these are the colors. This is the pattern that she picked out for him. He was 6'4", she was 5'2". Everybody asked me how in the world did a big man sleep on a short bed. In those days, for the most part, people slept sitting up with their head and shoulders way up here high on top of the pillows because they always thought that was better for them. Now remember, he was elected president while he lived in this room, in this house. And if you recall your American history, the Civil War is about to break out. We think that he came up to this very room and made some important historic decisions just before he left for the White House. Any questions?
Pictures.
Yeah.
Was he related to these people?
Not related. They were political heroes of his.
Why did they have a regular mantle for a fireplace? Why did they install
Now, when he added this upstairs on, he had them put in as false fireplaces with wood burning inserts. That's where he had.
I guess you would say yeah, I'll see the thing about it here. That was a guest room back there. That was a guest room?
They form more of a double line so we can get everything. Again, now this is Mary's room. Mary Todd was born in Lexington, Kentucky in a 20-room brick mansion. Her parents were wealthy. She was accustomed to having servants and slaves wait on her. 2 years of college, she spoke French fluently. Abraham Lincoln, of course, was just the opposite. He was born in a log cabin. Cabin so small that the whole thing could fit inside this bedroom. Dirt floor, no windows. His parents were poor farmers who could just barely read, and Abraham Lincoln went to school for less than a year during his entire lifetime. So the two of them came from different backgrounds. They met here in Springfield during a dance at her sister's house, and that's where they got married.
This is the boys' room. The toys there.
Let's go downstairs and we'll talk about the kitchen, please.
Not me, not me, not me.
We did too.
So they
This is the maid's room here.
Now, this is where the little young lady that would have been helping take care of the boys and all this good stuff.
Burn cook stove. Huh?
You see the irons? You got
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just reach over there.
Okay, just come on down. So the gentleman can go down. Okay, right down.
After the assassination, she rented this house out. She lived in Chicago. She lived in Europe for a while. In the last 3 years of her life, she came back to Springfield, but she always stayed at her sister's house, and that's where she died. She lived 17 years after the death of her husband, never did remarry. She wore black for the rest of her life. Question? I'm sorry, I didn't know you were still in there. I didn't mean to shut the door.
Yeah.
This is where he kept his horses and
That would have been his carriage house.
carriage house.
It opens it, road left.
Yes, well, that's true too, because they liked him real well. Yeah, when my husband and I got married, they still had him on it.
His, hers, and one for the kids. And this is just the back of Lincoln's house here. And they're standing under Abraham Lincoln's. Replica of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whose picture's that? This is just inside the tomb. Bunch of bronze statues of Abraham Lincoln. Here he stands in a it's an original by Lincoln Park, Chicago. Well, that's a replica of the one that stands in Lincoln Park in Chicago. Lincoln, the circuit riding judge. Kristen, now that's actually his tomb right there. Hmm? This is the front of Lincoln's tomb here in Springfield, just another close-up.
Father like that.
I know Wilson where they got
Mhm.
the medal.
That was his medal.
No.
Oh, with somebody else.
1874 to 1932. But it was the Jackaway tomb that he
Yeah, that he
remembered, yeah.
That was done it.
And it's Woodland Lot 22 is the section you look for, huh?
Was Ely a family name?
You know, I don't know it, so I thought it was E-L-Y.
Granddad is buried, Joseph Ely Camel. And the sign on the tree says Woodland Block number 22. And it's just down here. There's a hydrant and a drain here. And then there's a pathway on down there to the next hydrant, which has a tombstone with the name of Jackaway. J-A-C-Q-U-A-Y, I think, Jackaway. And he is just to the... Alright, this is the old Capitol here in downtown Springfield. We'll get some information on it in just a minute. It says Illinois Historic Preservation Agency welcomes to the restored Old State Capitol 1839 to 1876. In case you hadn't noticed, there's a fire truck going out in the background here. But it was used from 1839 to 1876. Sounds like the town's about to be destroyed, but
When we went to Jeff City the other day, did the girls tell you what was there? Well, we were there.
I didn't either, but they
what do you gotta do?
You gotta sign the guest register. You're putting in line, boy. I'll sign your name.
We're in the center here of the old state capitol. Got a poster up here. Let's see if we can get it. Abraham Lincoln for Vice President Hannibal Hamlin. Now we're going to pan up here to the rotunda of this old capitol. We're looking straight up over here. This is the flower and garden show. Very beautiful little building. All decorated up by the flower and garden. Office here.
No, Supreme Court is going to be in Hillsborough.
I don't think you can see, but these old blown glass windows. I hope that shows up. See the imperfection in those windows? Auditor's office, it's the old stadium, the old capitol. Again, all decorated up by the Flower and Garden Club. Beautiful. Something to do with a wedding, they say here. All the old law books. Tables where the legislatures and so on would read. Secretary of State's office. As it would have appeared in the late mid-1800s. Supreme Court office in the old
Is that where the clerk sat?
You realize now that building was torn down from
Yes.
turn of the century, County Center County had this courthouse. Governors don't even inside. Raised it.
seat for the
We have some
Attorney General, I guess, or Supreme Court judge.
drawing. We don't actually have any pictures per se, like outlines. So we have set it up. This is probably what it was.
Old law library. Very exclusive club. Of course, it's all decorated up now by the Flower and Garden Club. Where all the representatives met 1839 to 1870. This is the state Senate chambers. We were just in the representative chambers. Now this is the Senate. Brass, very ornate. Candelabra there. Betty and Kristen, Debbie, of the Representatives Hall. There's Kenny and Korrie here at the old state capitol building, Illinois, Springfield. Getting ready for the wind ensemble to perform here. The rotunda is just a picture of the Illinois state capitol building here in Springfield, Illinois. And we'll go on to the museum next. Some old government office buildings. It's like a new one that they're building up here. Illinois State Museum. Foot tall totem pole here with Abraham Lincoln on it. And the Indians, when they found out the 13th Amendment had been passed to free the slaves, thought it protected them, and they were so grateful that the Indian chief dedicated that this totem pole be carved, and it's 50 foot tall. Ooh, big old skinny dinosaur. Let's go see what it says. American Macedon. This fiberglass reproduction was cast from the original skeletons of a 16,000-year-old Macedona recovered from Bonnie Springs, Benton County, Missouri. How about that? during a joint project of the Illinois State Museum and the University of Arizona. And here's a picture of an American mastodon. Looks like a forerunner of a big elephant. Over here we have a display of red fox, and I hope they show up without a great lot of distortion and glare. Aren't they pretty? Male, female, and 3 little ones in a den right there under the tree. Well, this is neat, isn't it? Well, it's a gigantic deer. Big deer. All right, here we got another display of some squirrels, fox squirrels or red squirrels, and a skunk.
Jake, do you remember?
No. Look at the buffalo here. Here's a buffalo. It's native setting.
Talk about woolly.
All the prairie grasses. A shot of the prairie. But here in the grass, look at the big old coyotes are looking at him.
See right straight up here at the top of the hill. Kristen, that's enough.
There's plenty of room for all of us now.
I don't know where these bears are found in Illinois. This says Lake Michigan,
Lake Michigan
Beach,
Beach.
Illinois.
What's the snake?
How about that?
Where's the snake?
Right down there in front of you.
And it disappeared in the late 1800s.
What disappeared? Yeah, what disappeared?
The black bear. It moved away from Illinois.
They were.
Look at the totem poles, girls.
Now that's the one that's out front. It's just been cut down.
What's in there? Look in there.
What's that?
There's the chipmunks over here.
That's a ground squirrel, chipmunk.
Two of them. What is that, a beaver?
Pocket gopher.
Huh?
Mm-hmm. Just a gopher.
See, this is a 13-line brown squirrel, and that's a Franklin brown squirrel.
Oh, I can this isn't a beaver. That's a squirrel.
What kind? That's a gray squirrel.
Eastern gray.
And there's a red squirrel. That's a small one. And there's a tassel-eared squirrel. I never.
What's that, my thing?
That's a squirrel.
Here's a look at that flying squirrel there. See him?
You're right up here in the middle.
He jumps from tree to tree. They call him flying squirrel. Then you got the groundhog or the woodchuck.
Here's this.
Now this is just
A
like the
beaver?
old red squirrel. It says Eastern fox squirrel.
Yeah.
That's how beavers sound.
That's how beavers' tails are.
And then you got a black squirrel. I never did ever see a black squirrel around
There's white squirrels down at
some town.
where I've forgotten the name
I
of it
don't
now.
believe these are.
There's an aardvark. How many have we had around here?
Well, there's a three-toed sleuth,
What is that?
It's an
a
anteater.
kinkajou,
He sucks up ants through his
Cody.
long nose. These are armadillos.
Here's a common hedgehog
What is that?
right there.
That's a
That's a
two-toed anteater.
two-toed anteater.
Oh, was it Marionville where they had the
Yeah. There's a six-banded armadillo. There's a giant anteater. I don't think we got any of them around here. But they're mammals of special interest, it says. It says rodent immigrants. Both the house mouse and the Norway rat were unintentionally introduced from the old world. They inhabit the buildings and yards of man. They carry disease and are destructive of property and of foodstuffs. Here we have several. We have the chipmunk, the wood rat, several others that I can't find. But there's a chipmunk up at the top. And there's an eastern wood rat there at the bottom. Of course, over here we have the southern Illinois hill country, and shows the big old timber wolves, or the gray timber wolves as they call them, living there. And that's part of the Ozarks in southern Illinois that they're looking at. Okay, over here we have a rice rat, and being the wet grass of southern Illinois, I suppose along the Illinois and Ohio rivers. This one's kind of dark. We've got a white-footed mouse. I hope he shows up, because he definitely has white-foot. And we got the short-tailed shrew. You all heard of a shrew? Well, there is such an animal. They're abundant throughout Illinois, it says. Over here we've got the least shrew and the eastern mole. And there's the mole down there, getting shadow. I can't seem to get out of it. There's the mole. And here are the least shrew. Boy, they're just little bitty Dickenses. He's laying right there. That long nose. And over here we have bats. And again we're getting a shadow. Worse there. But anyway, there are the bats hanging from the different areas in the caves. Alright, we're going to pan around. Pardon me, Ray. Turn around. Look at the deer. Two doe deer just here in the forest. Over here we have a badger.
What's this worth of?
Now those are coyotes there. They're eating. He's eating a rabbit. There's his den and another baby coyote over there.
He's got blood all over.
He's eating a rabbit. Picture some geese. And it's Horseshoe Lake, October in southern Illinois. Now we've got a mink. If you ever get a nice coat, you have a mink along the stream in the wintertime.
And a skeleton. Oh, that's a horse.
Over here we've got a river otter. Most of these, about the only time you'll ever see them, even in the wild, will be in a museum. But there's a river otter, and it's scattered throughout the United States.
We'll go back.
This is P-H-Y-L-U-M.
I thought.
I lost you for all.
Are we going going through the hiccups again.
Where's
Oh,
Bob?
you got in here.
Here.
Point them out to me, Kristen. What's that big bird?
Where's the snake?
Okay, you find
Huh?
There must be snares.
Isn't that a crane? Huh? There's a red-winged
There,
bat.
there
Here,
must
here,
be.
what, number 7? No, maybe number 6. Number 7. Blue heron.
Okay, give me one clue.
Okay, and number 8.
He's laying on a log.
Oops. Look, where's that?
Where's the bullfrog?
There's Bob.
Let's see what's...
Okay, there's a snowy owl. There's a
These
long-eared
are all
owl.
owls.
There's the gray phase. There's the old screech owl. There's a barred owl. There's a barn owl. That just says adult. I guess that's an adult red phase. There's a sawhoot owl. Short-eared owl. And that's the horned owl. There's just another shot of the blue heron and some of the other birds. All right. In here we've got the coon. And there's some pictures of some ducks back there. I don't see any real ones, just on the mural. Okay, we got a bald eagle here.
We gotta go way around behind here.
Bald eagle, he's eating the fish. That must be the female bald eagle. Which way are we going to go? Alright, this is the golden eagle. Showing one in flight there. Then over here we have a bobcat. And they are found throughout the United States. They pretty well been extinct now. Alright, here's some more eagles. A bald eagle. Again, showing him in flight what he looks like. And down here, we got a black vulture. And then we got the familiar old turkey vulture. We can call them buzzards if we want to. These are some birds. I don't think they're native. We got a crested penguin. We got a kiwi. We've got the ostrich, and we've got the cassowary. These are just some of the skulls, some of the skeletons. Common hawks of Illinois. And let's get some of these. Okay, we got the osprey right up here. Down here, we've got the rough-legged hawk. Down here, we've got the broad-winged hawk. This is the Cooper's hawk. There's a sparrow hawk. This is the red-shouldered hawk. This is the red-tailed hawk, which we have a lot of. And this is the marsh hawk that we have. These are albinos, animals that are of a species but are just white. Believe it or not, there's a gray squirrel. Whoop. With the shutter. Okay. There's a gray squirrel, white. Here's a albino mink. There's even an albino crow. Here's an albino chipmunk, an albino coon, an albino eastern mole. There's a partridge. Here's a snowshoe hare, which I don't think are common to Illinois. But there's a partigan. It's regular. Here's an albino red-tailed hawk. There's even an albino house sparrow, an albino possum, and an albino mallard duck. Kind of weird, aren't they? All right, we'll look over here. Plain old plain old rabbit, cottontail rabbit. This is a swamp rabbit, similar to the cottontail, but is larger, darker, and he has more reddish brown on the body. And swamp rabbits are found in the southern third of Illinois, in low swampy woodlands and dense thickets. And here we have the white-tailed jackrabbit. And it says one of 3 species of rabbits native to Illinois. And it's found primarily along the river channels in northwestern Illinois. This is extinct and vanishing birds of the nation. Well, this big one is a whooping crane. He is a big one. Big old whooping crane. Then we've got the ivory-billed woodpecker. We've got the passenger pigeon. We've got the Carolina parakeet. We've got the prairie chicken. We've got the Eskimo curlew, C-U-R-L-E-W. And of course the most famous, probably other than the whooping crane, is the California condor. And they're beginning to make a comeback. Birds. And their eggs and their nests. We're going to look at fish, and then we'll look at snakes next.
No.
All right, there's a short-nosed gar. Here's a northern pike on the bottom, and a bluegill, of course, on the top. Here's a bowfin or dogfish up here on the top, statewide in large rivers. And on the bottom we've got white and yellow bass. These are all native, all of them are game fish here. Of course, over here we have the white crappie and the black crappie. I hope you can see the difference in the two. Look at the speckle on the black crappie and the white crappie. Here we've got largemouth bass right in here, smaller ones, and a warmouth sunfish, statewide. Over here we've got pumpkin seeds, we've got rock bass. Those are the pumpkin seeds. These are the green sunfish, and that's your rock bass, if you can pick it up. Here's some of your minnows and your suckers. Those are red shiners there. And those are suckers. They're sure not very big. They're on the bottom. It says that they're abundant in the fast-flowing streams. There's a hognose.
Yeah, we used to call those blowing vipers, and they'd just curl up, turn over, and act like it's dead.
There's your diamondback water snake. Everybody mistakes those for...
Oh, look at all of them.
There's your black snake or your black rat snake.
Yeah. Here's the one that you play with this kind all the time.
Copper-bellied water snake.
Yard.
Curtained water snake. These are your milk snakes over here. There's a line snake. There's your common garter snake. There's your green water snake. Here's your bull snake. He's a big one. And he's ferocious. Wouldn't hurt a flea. There's a worm snake. There's a queen snake. There's a rough green snake. There's the smooth green snake. There's your red-bellied snake. There's your DK's snake. Ringneck snake. There's your prairie king snake, common snake. There's your mud snake. There's another king snake. I don't know what the difference is in them. Prairie king snake and just a king snake. There's your fox snake. There's your common water snake. Everybody thinks is cottonmouth. Now here's your rattlers here. They're poisonous. Here's your mascarura. Just a little old rattler. Here's your timber rattlesnake. Right in here. Now here's your true cottonmouth. And up above, of course, is the copperhead. Those are all the snakes, I guess, that are found in Illinois. This is the brown spider, and it says are poisonous and may be identified by a dark violet-shaped mark on the forehead portion of the body. And we call them, I think, brown recluse. They're found in the brown recluse and the brown rufus, R-U-F-U-S. Their bite and general appearance are identical. The bite causes the tissue of the affected area to die and ulcerate, forming a lesion that is extremely painful and slow to heal. That's your brown spider. Here's your itch mite. Itch mite causes infectious disease of the skin known as scabies or 7-year itch. The mite is transmitted by close personal contact with infected persons or sometimes their clothing or bedding. Of course, these are blown up several times. Here's your black widow, your widow spiders. It says 2 species are known in Illinois, the northern widow and the black widow. The black widow is recognized by the shiny black abdomen with the red hourglass mark on the inner side. The hourglass mark of the northern widow sometimes is in a broken pattern. And here's your dog tick. American dog tick is capable of transmitting Rocky Mountain spotted fever and tularemia and may cause tick bite paralysis. It is carried by dogs, rabbits, wild caravanese such as foxes, coyotes, and coons, and occasionally by man. The species is found throughout the central and eastern United States. And who hasn't seen a tick? Fence lizard, broadhead sink, 6-legged race runner, and the ground sink, S-K-I-N-K. All right, here are your turtles. False map turtle. There's a map turtle. There's a spiny soft shell. Painted turtle. Ornate box turtle. Eastern box turtle. Red-eared turtle, stink pot turtle, Blanding's turtle, and snapping turtles. Big old snapper there. Alright, frogs and toads. Alright, there's a cricket frog, little bitty ones. There's your pickerel frog, your leopard frog, green frog, big old bull frog, spring peeper, green tree frog, we're familiar with, the gray tree frog. There's a chorus frog. There's a narrow-mouthed toad. There's the old American toad. It's found in northern common toad of northern Illinois. And here's your Fowler's toad, your spade toad. Here are some salamanders, slimy salamander, they're all slimy. Tiger salamander, marbled salamander, your old mud puppies, your long-tailed salamander, newt, the red-blacked salamander, small-mouth salamander, spotted salamander, and the dusky salamander. That's your alligator snapping turtle, largest species of freshwater turtle in North America. The alligator snapping turtle catches fish by attracting them by a slowly moving grub-like lure in its mouth. The curious black bullheads, typical resin ponds and sluggish rivers, may be trapped in the turtle's jaws. Rare in Illinois waters, more common further south in the large rivers of the Mississippi system. This species weighs 60 pounds, and the Illinois record was 108 pounds. Big old turtle. Okay, this is exploring Illinois mushrooms, and I mean there's a whole raft of them, and we're not going to go through with all of them. Some of them we recognize, others we don't. There's the big old giant puffball. Remember how we used to kick them? There's the old jack-o'-lanterns, and up there, oh yeah, right there. are the morel or the sponge mushrooms, which everybody hunts in the spring of the year. You can see that the ground's just covered with mushrooms. Some of them mushrooms, toadstools, whatever. And then we gotta move on. These are all butterflies. Yeah, that ugly bug can be a beautiful butterfly. I don't know. All kinds of pretty all kinds of pretty butterflies. And they're all identified. We don't have time to. Okay, there's a statue of Abe Lincoln. These axe in his book under hand says, "With malice toward none." Bronze statue of young Abe. It's one of the entrances here now into New Salem. Entrance to the park. Okay, and we find out that while we're here that this is the Bluegrass Festival today and tomorrow. So we're going to see a lot of picking and singing. Some of the old rail fence.
Somebody stole my gal.
Made right over here in the little shop next door. Now that is the Cooper shop. Now that the little shop that is next door is our only original shop and log home in the whole village. The rest of it has been reconstructed by our CCC boys in the 1930s and early 40s. And as you go throughout the village, you will be amazed at the wonderful job that they did do when they reconstructed the village, because they went through and picked up on all the tradesmen and all the craftsmen, and it was very commercial and industrialized. Now Lincoln lived here in the village from 1831 to 1837, but he never did own any property here in the New Salem village. He did live here, and he roomed and boarded at different places throughout the village, but he never owned a log home.
Okay, we're out back now. Old log barn.
And that ugly old restaurant, I'm not in that
What's the ash hopper?
Ash hopper. They save the ashes to make Lysol.
anymore. So,
You threw all the ashes right in there, and they shoveled them out, Corey. Here.
Shop here where they made all the barrel bands and different things. This is an original building here.
That's basswood. And that's not that tough to work. The first thing I did was I didn't cut this out until after I already had this all chipped out. I chipped the whole thing out. This isn't exactly the size I wanted it. I did this, I used one down, we got down to the Kansas Spring Road, but I didn't have to use basswood wide enough at the time. And it should have been out another 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches. But they made
Henry Onslaught
good-
Cooper
a
Shop,
good, inventory of these.
supposedly one of the original buildings, and they made buckets, tubs, also made barrels.
It's a block hook, it's used for blocking up the stave to work a draw knife with it.
Some of the bluegrass here.
This is my little boy, Jamie. Try to.
John Jack H. Kelso residence.
That's the one I talked to you about.
Kelso and his wife lived in one room of the residence. Kelso and Miller had married sisters before coming to New Salem from the southern uplands. Through their relationship and family origin, the chores of this dog trot style home was understandable. The open area was usually used for eating or sitting area away from the heat. Kelso was a hunter, fisherman, and jack of all trades. He was able to supply all the money he needed doing odd jobs in addition to trapping and foraging. Kind of dark in there, but and they ate here in the breezeway. Early Kentucky fiddle.
That's true. I need to get right down to it.
They were at school. Well, school started an hour after sunup, and they stayed till just before sundown. So, oh yes.
So what they go like 8 months out of the year?
They went, I think it was 5 days a week, 9 months of the year, I believe. And this, they had to pay for it. I think different schools varied as to the time and to the length of the day and whether you paid or not. At one point, there were no schools, virtually no schools west of the Appalachians that allowed girls to go. But they started this school here, and it was supposed to be free for girls and boys. Minja Graham came to town and went to start school.
Man in the plaid shirt with the guitar is the one singing. There's some of the local craftsmen there going home for the day.
Saved a lot of the knowledge. That handle was made out of 4 pieces of 1/4-inch rod. He welded the end together, and then he braided this part. He welded the other end together and welded it to the basket. You see it.
You've been in here before.
How long?
He said just keep walking.
The old blacksmith shop over there.
Here's
Some of the
another
local
one we go
people.
look at. See who lived in this one.
That's just a cabin. I don't think it says, does it? All these cabins, when Lincoln lived here, I think they said it was 1830 to 1837. There were about 125 people that lived in the village. These houses were rebuilt during the Depression by the CCC boys. This was one of their building projects, as they did many of those.
And you've got a spinning wheel. So it's just a real simple kind of mechanism. You go on down the road to the Hill House. Have you been down this way yet? Or just coming through? When you go on down the road to the Hill House, you'll find another kind of spinning wheel, which is what we more commonly think of, and it's the little low one that you sit down to spin. And this has another kind of horseshoe shaped piece around it with a little hook on it. What it's doing
Some woodworking.
is exactly the same thing as what this is doing, but it's a more sophisticated machine. And so therefore, instead of pulling out and letting it spin and then having to come back.
Okay.
See you later.
Yeah, you bet. Is that tobacco? Yep, there's some baccy. Another one of the old garden plots here. Looks like it's pretty well grown up in weeds. That's tobacco over there again. Corn patch.
It's a very poor man. He came here in 1832 and stayed until 1834. Abraham Lincoln did stay here for a while, $1 a week. But this guy was an unskilled handyman. Right.
You've heard the
My
speech
helper.
before, huh?
She's my helper. And he left here in 1834, and he went on to Knoxville, and that is where he became a farmer.
We're looking at the roof of that house, the shingles, how they stick up there. Something here evidently under a degree of repair. Got the logs in, they don't have them chinked together. They'd bring oxen there and just drive them around on that mill, and as they walked, why they turned that mill. There's the gears underneath. Old boy said it was mules. The sign says they used oxen. But he did run a store with Mr. Berry. It seems James and Roland Hendren had arrived in New Salem by the spring of 1831. They built the store and opened it that fall. In the summer of 1832, James sold his interest in the store to William Berry. Roland became dissatisfied with Berry and later the same year sold his interest to Lincoln for his promissory note. Stores were popular gathering places. Not only was merchandise bought, but stories were swamped by anything from weather to politics discussed. When a larger store and a better stock of goods became available across the street, Berry and Lincoln recognized its value and moved there in mid-January of 1833. So it's just a little bitty one-room store. First doctor's office here. There had been a saloon. This is Dr. Francis Rigonier office. It was here in late 1831 that Henry Simcoe erected a residence from where he was licensed to sell liquor by the drink. On October 10, 1832, Dr. Francis Rigonier purchased this property from Simcoe and set up his practice. Rigonier came to Illinois from Marietta, Ohio, where at 20 he was licensed to practice medicine and surgery on May 27, 1827. In August 1834, Dr. Rigonier married Sophia Ann Goldsmith and moved to nearby Clary's Grove. He apparently kept this building until the late 1830s for use as an office. Rigonier later moved to Petersburg, where he died in 1859.
There's a chessboard right there in the middle.
You can see anything in here. That's the old doctor's office. Well, we're about to the end here. I don't know what they've got pinned up over here. But we'll go over and see what the attraction is. Oh, Betty's got a goat. You might know Betty'd find a goat. Here, Korrie.
Let it happen, Kristen.
They're gonna come over the fence.
Yeah, they're not going to come over the fence.
Hold it up there, Korrie. Shake your hand.
Shake it.
Here, Korrie, hold it up. He's using it.
Let it down so we can get it. Here, go, 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 go.
We're going to go where the grass is greener. Dr. John Allen. We'll go in and see if the good doctor's here.
I hope you'll be more tomorrow. Well, this is the doctor's home, sir. Do you need any medication?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm rolling pills for him here. Do you have
You're rolling pills. Well,
I'm rolling pills.
that's what most doctors are, is pill rollers.
Well, really, years ago, the doctors were nicknamed pill rollers.
Yeah, that's what
and
I...
that's where they got them.
Mhm.
Of course, they would have gotten it from the instrument that I have here. Are you familiar with a pill roller or a pill cutter, the instrument
No.
we have here? You see, at that time, had you come in the doctor's office and needed any
Just-
medication, the doctor had to pay.
Just go right ahead now.
Well, I'll make something here. But most of them here take a look at my medication and they get better, pretty quickly. But this is an old pill cutter, and at that time,
there was no medication in pill form, so if you'd come in and the doctor decided this is what you needed, he'd have to make it for you.
Betty and the girls, but I imagine this probably be the place to look for them, particularly Betty. This is a tavern. Now, taverns, I think, were what we would call restaurants or hotels. They weren't what we think about them today. But we'll find out about it. It says the Rutledge Tavern. James Rutledge, a native of South Carolina, who co-founded New Salem with John Cameron, erected a building as a residence in 1828. Once New Salem began to prosper, he converted it to an inn or tavern where travelers could enjoy a meal and a bed. Law fixed tavern rates at 37.5 cents a day for a meal and overnight stay. The Rutledge family left early in 1833. Nelson Alley later owned the tavern, rented it to Henry Olmsted in 1837. Alley sold it to Jacob Bale, who by this time operated both the carding mill and the saw and grist mill. The Bales used it as residence for many years. By 1880, it had decayed to ruin. That's the interior of their home.
We don't want to be food poisoning.
Fireplace and hearth. Mantle.
Oh yes, well then we will be serving and we get...
I lost y'all.
Yeah?
I figured you'd be over there to the tavern, so I went over to the tavern and looked for you.
Oh, what down here?
It's here and the sun's decided to shine. We'll get a better shot. But here are a couple of oxen. And we'll come around the corner and catch them later on. Got a couple of big old oxen here. Well, you want to see a fancy fireplace, you have to look at that one that's over in the tavern.
I haven't been there yet. I want to save it to the last in case I don't
Ma and Pa slept on the bed. I wonder where all the kids slept.
I had almost guessed they slept in front of the hearth or something, probably the floor, trundle bed.
John Roland Hendon Residence.
I guess you have a choice either to roll it from the top bar or to roll it separately on the little bar. I rolled it all the way up and hitched it up so that you could get your head up.
No, see, I think what it is, you have a choice.
See,
That's the same, yeah.
Accidentally shot and killed his wife.
Last boat ride went at 4 o'clock, so we missed the boat.
It says Denton Offutt Store. Offutt first employed Abraham Lincoln in the spring of 1831 to take his goods by flatboat from Springfield to New Orleans. Due to a delay in crossing the Mill Dam, Offutt and Lincoln first visited New Salem. Offutt decided to open a store here and employ Lincoln to run it. On July 8, 1831, Offutt was licensed to retail at New Salem. It was here that Lincoln received his first exposure to the business of merchandising. Within a year, Offutt's enterprise had failed. He left New Salem for pretty well grown up in the weeds. If you look down there, you can see the old race and the old turbine and shaft there. Like the river's changed its channel.
That kid told me the last boat went at 4 o'clock. Now, what boat went at 4 o'clock? That's my uncle devil. I don't remember what he looked like, but I'm working boat.
I do want to show you.
Rutledge and, what is it, saw and grist mill. Rutledge and Cannon, I guess. There's the old sawmill here.
Rutledge and Cameron.
Look at the old sawmill here.
The grist mill right there.
Yeah. The old race ran down along here by the river. But evidently it's changed channels or somehow Maybe they had a dam or something on there to bring the water through. Two-man drill press sitting here. That's the brick mold sitting up there. The old broad axe. There's a mallet. There's a froe. We're going to split shingles. Some augers up there. There's a drawing knife. There's the adze. And there's a two-man crosscut saw. There's a lard paddle, steel yard scales, apple butter paddle. Here's your old yoke for carrying pails like the old Dutchman used. Here's the farm implements. Got a tar bucket, got a wood beam plow, got a mill stone level, big old heavy thing, got a wagon wheel tub. There's a sausage stuffer. There's a grain cradle. There's a flail. There's a reap hook, a rake, oxen yoke, hay fork, hay knife. Here's all your wooden rolling pins, mush ladles, butter molds, all your different mallets. There's a hunting rifle. There's a squirrel rifle. There's a single barrel Fowler, a shotgun. The old powder horns. There's a picture of the old mill and sawmill that we saw down the road just a minute ago. Some of the different yarns and stuff that they use for they use black walnut hulls. They dry them and make goldenrod blooms, madder root. Some of the pictures. Copper shop restored. Now these were restored by the CCC boys.
Samuel Hill's one who owned a two-story house. He was the richest man here. And he was the only one who had a two-story house.
Says here, New Salem was rebuilt in its entirety and its cabins furnished completely with relics from the formative period of Lincoln's life. Will expert a greater influence on the lives of this generation, future generations, than any other memorial shrine to Lincoln in all the world. That was Henry Homer dedication speech at New Salem, October 26, 1933. And that's the CCC boys in their camp as they rebuilt. Says New Salem began to take form in the 1830s, and 10 years later it was practically abandoned. Just 100 years later, in 1930, the village began to take form once again. In a similar period of 10 years, it continued to grow once again. And now, in 1940, it is substantially completed. This time, however, it will not be abandoned, but will be forever lasting. Its materials will be replaced as required by the ravages of time. But like our bodies, which are new in physical substance every 7 years, it will not change as a whole or in spirit. Lincoln, New Salem will be with us forever. Pottery. This is a pewter coffee pot owned by James Rutledge, living in the wilds with a pewter coffee pot. The other view of the old mill here with the sawmill that we saw. Okay, it's 4:45. I guess we better be making our way home. far from the ox that we saw. Well, it's closing up time. They go home at 5 o'clock. Most of the people have left and parked. Got a few stragglers, but we're headed back toward the car. That's just 2 oxen, and only 2 make only 2-story house in New Salem. And they said that the family that lived here was the richest family in New Salem. As you can see, it's a 2-story house, probably 4 rooms, 2 down below and 2 up above. Real nice residence. Well, the crowd's about gone. Korrie at Abraham Lincoln's first store, the Barry Lincoln store.